The Legendarium podcast is brought to you
by you. So please visit patreon.com/legendarium
to support the show. But for now,
welcome to the Legendarium.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan and Craig here for this episode on Dune. Just so you know, this is just all about the movie, and it's me and Ryan, so this is kind of red team stuff. If you are interested in our coverage of the books, the blue team did all of the Frank Herbert Dune books, so those 6 core books, and you can check those episodes out at thelegendarium.com if you're interested. And spoilers abound for the movie, the books, the whatever, so just heads up. Anyway, let's dive in. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Legendarium podcast. I am Craig, your host, and over there he is...
Ryan.
Ryan. Hey. Welcome. Ryan is my own personal Shia LaBeouf. I don't know. What's the real word?
Shai Hulud.
Shai Hulud, that's right. Okay, so today we're talking about Dune. This is the episode that you didn't need, kind of wanted, and now have. So Ryan and I just watched together, it was our Legendarium date night. Mm-hmm. We watched Dune.
I appreciate you keeping the romance alive.
That's right. I gotta make the effort. So so I'm over at Ryan's house. We sound a little different tonight because we're in Ryan's little studio here instead of the regular one. So yeah, it'll be a little different, but we watched it and then we thought, we should probably do an episode on Dune, right? The people have asked, and now we shall speak. So.
Yes, very, very loudly and frequently they have asked for this.
They asked a couple times on Discord. So, and it just kind of seems like one of those things that even if people aren't clamoring, it's like, oh, we should probably get this on the record. Okay, our thoughts on Dune. So
that's true.
So we've seen it twice now.
Should we call this part 1 of our thoughts?
Yes, but only in secret.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so you've seen it twice now.
Yes,
I've seen it twice now. So I feel like, now is a good time to give our thoughts on the subject.
There's been time to come off of the initial wave of watching it, that first your initial reaction coming out of a theater for a lot of things. I will say that our viewing experiences have been different in the sense that you got to see it first time in a theater. I elected to watch it first time at home on my own setup through HBO Max. And I'm sure we'll discuss this, but...
Yeah. So, I think just to lay out our kind of unplanned episode here, what we're going to do, we'll talk about our experience with the movie so far, our thoughts on, the stuff that people have already talked about ad nauseum, but I haven't listened to or watched, on YouTube. So, these are all original thoughts to me because I don't care to go out and find everybody else's thoughts. I am more interested in purveying our own. So
yes. All thoughts are our own, and
I think it'll be fun because I haven't read the book. I think it'll be fun for me to try to summarize the story of Dune so far and see if the movie has adequately transmitted the story.
Okay.
Or if we're missing anything, we'll maybe talk around some of the meta stuff. You know, how it was to watch it in the theater, HBO Max, whatever, that sort of thing. So
yeah, makes sense to me. Cool.
So Ryan, initial thoughts. Let's keep it high level first, and then we'll dive into the specifics. Did you like it? Is this a successful movie to you?
I did like it. I did enjoy watching it. I will be honest. I had more issues with it than I thought I was going to have.
Oh, really?
Okay. I was really excited for this. I really, really was. But a handful of things, without going too deep, just kind of put me on the wrong foot, and it made it harder for me to enjoy the film.
Okay.
Plus, I will say that my experience viewing was different because I didn't see it in a theater, and I think I think that I wish I would have experienced it first in the theater. Because now going and seeing it, I think I could still have a good experience, but it would be different. It wouldn't be like that first time.
There's no going back. It's world famous tangent time. Did you ever watch Chuck?
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about this. The final episode or the final spoiler alert, I guess, for this decade-old show, where one of the characters gets his memory wiped.
Yeah.
And they're huge nerds, and so he gets to see Star Wars for the first time in Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's. But you can't do that. It's fantasy. You can't go back. So yeah, there's no going back to watch Dune for the first time.
Yeah. So.
Although I will say, okay, so to compare experiences and just to kind of get into whether it's worth it to watch it in the theater, now that I say you can't go back, you can't have a first time, I'm not so sure. Because as we were watching it here tonight, you've got a great setup. You got a decent TV, you got a good sound bar, you've got, everything you would want in a little home theater setup. Where I saw it, they had these speakers. They call them the refrigerator. They were apparently developed by NASA, and I don't understand the technology, but it's got something to do with different types of vibration. It's not regular sound vibration, so they can crank the sound without damaging your ears, right? And so, boy, did they have those things cranked. And I felt the movie the first time I saw it. The music, the sound effects, like when the bombs are dropping on Arrakis, when the Harkonnen reinvade, I guess, when they come back and they're dropping bombs, and like you're just feeling this go on. And so I loved it the first time I saw it, but I recognized even in the moment, I was like, I'm not sure if I like how much of this movie I'm even registering, because the experience is just washing over me.
Right.
So I'm bathing in Dune rather than watching it. Right.
Got it. Yeah.
So today was kind of an interesting test where I was curious if I would pick up on anything different, or if the movie would feel different because I was able to tune into different things, because I wasn't so distracted by literally having my inner core reverberate. It's something I'll never forget.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, we've kind of just basically jumped on the topic anyway. So I've had the question of whether or not people would enjoy it as much seeing it on the theater, or seeing it in the theater and then coming home and watching it on HBO Max, or when it comes out on other options. Like, are you going to enjoy this film as much when you got that first experience? Because it's not going to be the same. It is, even with a good setup, it is a little bit more pulled back. And the feeling I had as I watched it the first time, and even during the second time, wasn't that I never got to a point in the movie where I was like, this is bad, this is stupid, or anything. But I did have moments where I had the urge to just kind of pop up on my phone and look at some things. Right. Open up, Twitter or something like that for a minute. And that's usually not a good sign. It's usually not a good sign for a film. Sure. But it wasn't because that the film was bad. It was because it was pacing slow enough that I didn't feel that it needed my full attention. Which is really a disservice to the film, because it is basically a series of paintings. Oh my gosh. I kept thinking of that as I was watching it this time, the whole concept of every frame a painting. Yeah. It's like, boy, does this movie take that to a whole new level. Yeah, there are very few films, very few experiences I can look at and feel that way, where every frame is a painting in there. And I will say this one, Dune, is one of those where there's not a time where I just can't see everything it was lined up perfectly and everything is just set so nice. Yeah. And you can almost just I would love for the coffee book of the concept art for Dune. The coffee table art book. Yeah. Sit there and just flip that open and go through the film and just go, yep. See how close they are to the concept art. Yeah, I gather that that people who know the books and love the story have nits to pick with the adaptation, and that's fine. I'm sure I would too if I were a big Dune fan. But yeah, just as far as movie making goes, there's almost no fault to be had with at least the cinematography of it, right? The way it was shot is clearly done with a lot of love and passion. Oh yeah. So I fully expect to see it up in the awards discussion in the coming year. Oh no, it'll clean up. Sort of thing. Yeah, it'll clean up in the effects and all that, the sound, the design, whatever, the costuming probably. Yeah. So should I try to I would love to hear recap this. What you think, having not read the book. I'd love to hear what your your take is
Okay.
on what's going on.
So this is unprepared. Okay, I haven't written anything down like I sometimes do for these recaps. So here's what I gather: we've got a few factions. The two major factions, or I guess three major factions that we worry about in this movie, are the Atreides, the House Atreides. Okay, so that's the main family that we're following around, and then there's the Harkonnen and the Fremen. Fremen are the indigenous people on Dune. The Harkonnen have been there for 80 years, mining spice and getting really rich off of it. And now the Emperor has sent House Atreides. He's taken Arrakis, Dune, away from the Harkonnens and given it to the Atreides. Okay, you guys go mine this now. And it's kind of confusing. Why would he do this? This doesn't make a lot of sense, but I guess the Emperor favors the House Atreides now. Well, it turns out no, he hates House Atreides. And he did this so that the Harkonnens could then reinvade and kill them all and win the war between those two houses, and totally lay waste to House Atreides, right? So okay,
Yes.
So far
Pretty,
so good.
Yes, pretty accurate so far.
Okay, so as we're going to Dune, and this I picked up more on this the second time. We're heading to Dune. And there's the Bene Gesserit, the witch ladies, okay? And it's, I gather, all like entirely women. This is these are the Aes Sedai
Yes.
of Dune, and Lady Jessica, who is of the Bene Gesserit, gave birth to a son and taught him the ways of the Bene Gesserit. That's our main character, Paul Atreides, and he. So he has some of these magical gifts that she has. And they're not super thrilled that she gave birth to a son, but now he may be the child of a prophecy. And what I picked up on the second time is that the prophecy is a fake. Or it's a plant. That the Bene Gesserit went to Arrakis hundreds of years ago. They've been seeding this prophecy among the Fremen, the indigenous people of Dune, for reasons.
Yes.
That's as far as I've gotten with that. I don't know what the reasons are, but they set it up so that one of their people would lead the Fremen. I don't know what, like,
there should be more explanation of that part of the plot line going forward.
I did get that, like, okay, so they've been kind of breeding this magical ability, whatever it is. What do they call it in the movie? The sight, the sound, the voice. They've been breeding this sensitivity, this magic, basically, in the hopes that one day someone would be so powerful with this ability that they could see through and manipulate time and space. Is this correct?
Yeah.
And so Paul may be that person. Ooh, that's so interesting. But then what I don't understand is why it matters that be part of like some Fremen prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's where I'm a little lost on that.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyway, so the Harkonnens come, they bomb the heck out of the Atreides. And Paul and his mother, Lady Jessica, are kind of exiled, and they're found by the Fremen, and the Fremen take them into their city, and that's where we end the movie. We're heading to the Fremen city. End of movie. Okay, so I feel like I got what the movie was giving me. Now my problem, and I got most of that. Like I said, there were a couple things that I picked up on the second time, but I got most of that the first time through. And then I saw people online saying like, oh, they left out this. They didn't explain the shields. They didn't explain the Ganjabar. They didn't explain the whatever. And I'm like, no, they kind of did.
Everything you needed to know was there.
Yeah, I got it. I understood. Okay, the slow blade penetrates the shields. And so when the bombs drop, they have special bombs that slow down, get through the shield, and then blow up. Like, it's not that hard to figure out. But I'm sure there's more, like they go into more depth and give you more situations with how the shields work and all that. And
yeah,
but I got it.
It's the difference of being able to say, hey, I'm dedicating a page or a page and a half page, whatever, to what this is and why it is, versus I have 5 seconds of screen time to give this
Right.
to help you understand this point, because I'm not going to spend a minute explaining why the shields are the way they are and why the slow blade comes through. Like, no, that's for the book. Those are things that adaptations don't do well. Like, you don't want to spend that much time making sure that your audience has every minute detail. They need to know the basics. How does it work? The slow blade goes through. That's all you have to understand about the shield.
Right.
And you can move forward.
Man, I got that. So yeah, there were some things like that. Like, I know people were complaining about some elements, and possibly rightly so. But again, as somebody who doesn't know the books, I came away with it feeling like, yeah, I got it. I understood the story. That's what I was worried about. I was worried that it would be too, you got to read the books if you want to like the movie. And I didn't feel that way.
No, I don't think, I don't. I've read the books twice, or at least I've read Dune twice. I have not read much past Dune. So if this storyline decides to go further down the path, then I won't know. But I can say that this has been a pretty accurate representation so far of what's in the book. I was very pleased with that. And the other thing I was comparing this to a lot is the 1984 version of Dune,
which I have seen 10 minutes of. I got right up to the scene where with the shields, the cubes around the actors is fantastic. Horrible. And I think I wasn't really sitting down to watch it, so I didn't get very much of it. Anyway, go on.
But it was interesting to me. I was curious to see how far away do you drive from, the 84 version. Like, I want to make sure that we don't, have any ties to that or whatever, or, how much is new tech. Because obviously the shields are going to be a lot better this time than something like that. But I was still surprised how much of the visuals still connected. And my thought was just that, well, then that's got to be something that is so important to the book that both adaptations knew they had to hit it this way. They had to do it a specific way.
Like what?
To showcase. I'm just some of the visuals of where what Arrakis looks like. I mean, there's how many?
It's sand dunes.
Sand dunes, but where the Atreides lived there, some of the sequences, they're also on the other side, how different they did get in some areas, like the Harkonnens, the way that they look. In the 80s version, the Harkonnens look like people who live in a dumpster. And it was a very different feel for this one, which I liked a lot. I like this version obviously a lot better in terms of looks and feel, but that one, there's some classic moments in that 84.
Oh, I don't doubt it. One thing that I did hear someone say that made a lot of sense to me, again, I haven't seen the whole 84 version, but I did see the first 10 minutes, and so I remember that there was quite a bit of voiceover from Paul. Mm-hmm. So his inner monologue is kind of going through, at least throughout those first 10 minutes, and this person was saying, it's kind of a feature throughout the whole movie. And while I'm sure that would annoy the heck out of some people, and possibly me in some situations, I could see where that would be useful in just explaining something. Give me a little bit of exposition. And maybe the least clunky way to do the exposition is with a little inner monologue, and if that's the least clunky way to do it, then it's probably best to leave it out. But I could see where it would be helpful, at least, in understanding the story.
Yeah. And it might help you hear Timothy Chalamet, in the first 12 minutes of the movie.
That's right. So we're watching it. Ryan hits pause. He's 12 minutes. Okay. Yeah. 12 minutes in. He hasn't yet said a line at full voice.
Yep.
The one thing that I would have liked, a little internal monologue or maybe subtitles for, is understanding the foreign words that they're using, or whatever the local words. Mm-hmm. So like what's the biznatch hatternack? I couldn't understand what the actual what the sounds were, So it's like, what's the biznatch?
Well, there's a couple of them in there, and
or the Shia LaBeouf, or the housekeeper. Her name is Shout Out Mapes. I don't know who Mapes is, but we're giving her a shout out. Like, what are these words? What are these names? Like Duncan, Idaho. I got that one. Thank you.
That one's solid. No, there's a name that they call Paul, as in he talks about it in his one of the things that's recurring in the whole story is the visions he keeps having.
Right.
He has them before they get to Arrakis, and then
Paul,
once
you are the Biznatch Hatternack.
and as soon as the spice starts hitting his system, they start to get more prevalent and more in like he starts to see further
More
intense. Yeah, and they start talking about him being Muad'Dib.
Oh, okay.
Which in the book I don't remember exactly, and so if I'd say it on here and people would be like, "No, you're a complete idiot," and I'd be like, "Yes, you're right," but I vaguely remember reading in the book or hearing it, and Muad'Dib was like MAUD dash something, and in
probably an apostrophe because this is sci-fi fantasy. It's got to be an apostrophe.
But I remember because they only say it I think once or twice in here, and it's in the subtitle, and it's just Maudi, and I was like, I thought it was. I feel like getting the name, like if you write out in the book a specific pronoun like Shai Halud, that it should be accurate in the film, and I couldn't remember if that. So it just for a moment it took me out. Like I don't know if that's the right.
I don't know that this is the answer, but linguistically it would make sense if, like, say that Bene Gesserit are going down and seeding these prophecies about the Muad'Dib, that over hundreds of years of retelling this prophecy among themselves, the Fremen shorten that to the Mahdi.
Just Mahdi.
Yeah,
I
which
could see that.
I mean, that's naturally what happens with language. I don't know if that's the case here, or if they just changed something for the film, but that would make sense to me.
I would just need, this is something I may just need to go back and look at the book too, because it could just be a bad memory. It just for a moment watching that, I was like, that's not the right name for what he's going for, but. Yeah, that, like I said, could just as easily be me being wrong.
So what were the things that you say kind of turned you off that made you not love the film so much?
Again, part of it was my experience. The pacing of the film didn't hold me. It didn't. I just got
slow for you.
I just got bored. Yeah. I would get bored at sequences like, okay, I understand what's going on here. And I actually, when we watched it the first time, I felt all 2.5 hours of the film. I got up and I was like, yeah, that was a 2.5 hour film. I felt, I feel like this was 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And
what was it that way the second time?
No, the second time actually things passed a lot quicker. I felt a lot better watching it the second time. But I think it's also because I've gotten over the very first thing that footed me.
Put you off?
Yeah, put me off, knocked me, whatever.
Threw you for a loop.
Yes, we'll go with that. Was when Dune pops up and it said part 1.
Oh yeah, that surprised me too.
Because if I had known this was a multi movie piece, I have no problem with that. Great. Tell the story well, do whatever you need to do with that. But there was no indication to
right.
to the general public, and I'm sure it was out there somewhere in an interview, whatever. But
this is one of the most annoying things on Twitter, which I don't spend a ton of time on Twitter, but enough to hate it. And one of the most annoying things is the more annoying version of the Dune fan who gets on and says, "Oh, if you didn't know that it was just part 1, then you just weren't paying attention." It's like, no, that just means I wasn't reading every interview that the actors and director did leading up to the release. I wasn't keeping track of every single word that was said about it. So if somebody is, then great. I'm glad you're so excited for the movie. But for the general public like us, we had no idea going in.
And something like that is such an easy fix. Add the words part 1 to your poster.
Well,
put it out on something.
It must have been on purpose, though. Obviously it was on purpose, but why would they do this? My guess is that they thought that it would tamp down enthusiasm if people were like, well, it's just part 1 and they haven't even announced part 2, so I'm not going to bother.
Well,
that's the best I can come up with.
Well, I can see maybe the studio, because there was talk, because they hadn't greenlit the part 2 yet. So if it's like, well, we're going to see how this one does before we release it. So we're not going to call it part 1 because maybe this might be the only one that's made.
Right.
Well, if this is the only one that's made, you've ended it. You've not finished the story.
Right. It's still very much part one, no matter whether the second one gets released. So that brings up a question that I had, which was it a mistake to not Lord of the Rings this up, as in film it all at once, and then release it periodically, whatever. Do you think they should have filmed it all at once? The thing is, how much did this movie cost? This is like a $200 million movie.
Yeah,
right?
It was budget up there. I want to vague for some reason the number 168 million popped into my head, but that I'm pulling that out of maybe someplace other than my head too.
165 million.
Oh, wow. That
Nice.
was close. That
Well
was
done.
close.
So yeah, I could see it where the Lord of the Rings was a massive gamble, right? Nobody had ever done anything like that before, and there's a reason they don't do that now, really. It's a huge gamble, and so I can kind of understand from a business standpoint why they wouldn't do that. But then, like before the numbers were even in for the first weekend, Warner Brothers came out and they're like, yeah, we're doing part 2.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? I guess that was just to kind of drive the hype in that opening weekend. Mm-hmm. But it was really frustrating. It's like, you couldn't have said that 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the whole point of that whole sequence is just to say it was off-putting at the beginning and threw me for like, okay, well how far are we going in the story? Or are you, or even if I had known like, okay, you're going to do all of Dune, the first book, in part 1 in the first film, and then you're going to move on to the next Dune book in part 2. So is this going to become like a 5-6 part series and we follow all of the Frank Herbert books? How far are you taking this?
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you, the thing that was most frustrating to me when it comes to the marketing wasn't that particular misdirection. It was the Zendaya misdirection.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Like, I'm a big fan of Zendaya. I was telling you about this earlier, Ryan, where she's a great example of what I call what do I call it? Physical
compelling.
No. When you are charisma. When you have charisma. Yeah. She has physical charisma. Not everybody has this, and I'm not talking about the fact that she's beautiful. Obviously, she's beautiful, but she's somebody who you can't take your eyes off her. She's really compelling. Something about her on screen. She did have some line deliveries that I didn't particularly care for, but just her presence. And so I felt like, oh man, I got robbed of some good Zendaya time. Mm-hmm. And I was promised with every poster and every preview or whatever they call them, trailer, every single bit of marketing was like, Zendaya's in this movie. I'm like, great, awesome. And luckily there are other actors in the show who have that physical charisma. So Josh Brolin is a great example of somebody
really?
who has, oh yeah, I think so. I do.
Okay.
I again, some of the line deliveries were questionable, but just like as far as like looking at him, like you don't want him to leave the screen. I say the same thing about who played Leto?
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac, yeah, great like physical charisma. You don't want him to leave the screen. So anyway, I wanted some more Zendaya. Luckily, we'll get that in part 2, I suppose.
Yeah, so. Definitely. I don't know. I can't really agree on the Josh Brolin thing.
No, not a fan.
I like Josh Brolin and I think he's a good actor. I just think that he's because of the character of Gurney Halleck it's very militaristic. It's very much and he played the part well. It was just very wooden and the character's not really. I don't know.
Here's my point with the whole idea of physical charisma. I'm not talking about the performance. I'm not talking about the casting choice. I'm just talking about that individual. Yeah. And these people in your life as well. This isn't a movie star thing. This is just people have this sometimes. Sometimes it's some other type of charisma. But when it's on screen, that's a specific type. Where you just want to look at that person. So that's all I mean. Okay. Let's talk about the design. So you got into this a little bit where you talked about the what you call them, the hobo Harkonnens from the '84 version.
Yeah.
And in this one, they're very what would you say, like industrial?
Oh yeah, it's very tech heavy. Blacks, whites, grays, color schemes. Any color in there is always an off. Like it's something that is disturbing about that sequence.
Right.
The toxic greens, things like that.
And then we've got the Atreides, who are what? How would you describe their
Earthy.
Yeah, I guess so. They come from a very wet planet, which was fun. I didn't really, it didn't sink in, so to speak. The first time I watched the movie, the first 20 minutes or so is just soaked. Yeah. Everything is soaked all the time. And then you flip a switch and there's no water to be seen anywhere. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
I had a very random, this is tangential, so people love it, but when they popped up the name of House Atreides' home planet, Caladan, I actually was wondering if that was used by the group who, Steve Erickson. He has a character named Caladan Brood. That's
is that
in Malazan?
Malazan, yeah.
In that sequence, and I was like, I wonder if this, if there's any sort of connection to that, or if it's just a name that they came up with.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's pretty. It's a pleasing sequence of syllables, isn't it?
Yeah.
Caladan, whatever. There's
Cowlick. Did you just say Cowlick?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they may not look good, but they sound great.
Got it.
No, I don't know. What I want to know is who designed the ships. So there's ships, and then there's some kind of tunnel, like a space tunnel. That I gather that basically it's, and the sandworms are kind of similar. Like the sandworms are basically a combination penis, vagina, and eyeball. Very, very strange. And it really is the one-eyed monster just looking right at you, right? But the ship up in space was the same way, or whatever that thing is called. I don't know.
Yeah, you remember the as a kid they have these tubes that are like they have like a colored jelly in it, and you can shake it. Yeah,
you guys should have seen the motion Ryan just made with his wrist. It was fantastic.
This is why this one's not on video.
You shake weight it?
Yeah,
Shake weight?
It's one of those big things. It's a
a sleeve.
I mean, let's be honest. It's what we called it while we were watching it. There's a fleshlight in space.
Fleshlights in space. That's pretty good. But you know what?
Thank you for listening. Support us on Patreon.
Like and subscribe. What was I? Oh yeah, no. I mean, we can make fun of sci-fi all we want, but we did just watch over the summer Jeff Bezos fly into space on a giant penis. So like that was a whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that was fantastic. So good. All right.
Other than that, other designs, other aspects, the ornithopters.
Is that what they're called? Ornithopters?
The dragonfly helicopter type things.
Yeah,
I thought those
cool.
were fantastic. The whole sequence when you first are introduced to the sandworms in place, and the sandworm attacks the mining ship. That's already things that
it feels real. It feels lived in. It feels real.
Oh yeah.
These are things. Oh, I don't know how how a balloon would lift 85 bajillion tons of machinery, but I'm just going to trust that they have some kind of gas I don't understand.
Some tech that works on there. That's something that I did think was interesting about looking at the design of different aspects of the show, because we're laughing about the Harkonnen ship, but the design of all of the spacecraft is incredibly simplistic. Like when Atreides, when they come to land on the planet, all of their ships, they're basically inverted sand crawlers that just come down, trapezoid setup, come down there. The Emperor sends a convoy and they come in a giant just ball. There's not a whole lot to it other than that, and then it opens up and comes down very Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy ship style. Yeah. And then the Harkonnens have the tube. So I feel like the spacecraft are super simply designed, but then when you get onto the actual planet, you've got the ornithopters that look very much like dragonflies, and I'm sitting here going, okay, this is cool. And now we're going to get to know the Fremen and see what their tech looks like and what things are, along that part of the world looks like. I'm excited to see what the design is, because what we've seen so far is really simple, really planet-based, and I really want to see the Fremen, who are the true planet owners, who are the people who have been here the longest,
Right.
what their stuff looks like.
Yeah, it'll be good. I'll tell you one thing that I really appreciated about the design from the Fremen is the still suits.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a Fremen design, right? And in almost any movie project, from the Marvel stuff to, what was it, the G.I. Joe or whatever, and you get these suits, and you've got the men's suits and you got the ladies' suits. And the ladies' suits, well, they got to have room for some big old boobies, right? And so you get these, like, whether it's armor, you know, like boob armor or, you know, whatever. Gosh, what am I thinking of? Oh, Ant-Man and the Wasp, where it's like, jeez, okay, well, all right, whatever. You know, and you kind of roll your eyes a little bit most of the time and just let it go. Like, okay, fine, it's the movies. I actually, because that is the norm in movies, it jumped out to me that the suits were androgynous. And like, that we don't have to remind you that she has giant boobs underneath this. Like, no, it's a still suit. This is functional, and this is so you can survive in the freaking desert. And so that's one thing I actually really appreciated, was that it felt more real that way.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't feel like, oh, I'm in the movies. It's no, I'm on Arrakis.
Yeah.
So I like that.
I will say this movie definitely. I don't think that. And man, this could be going out on a limb a little bit. I don't feel like there's a ton of things in Dune that are really driven by sexuality.
Is that true in the? I understand that's not true in the books. Like the Bene Gesserit are like sex witches, right?
Well, yes and no.
And I know there's some weird stuff because I sat in on conversations with the Blue Team when they talked about like bizarre like spice orgies, or I don't know what's going on in later books.
Maybe later on in the books it becomes things, but in the first book of just Dune, I don't remember a whole lot of that being a key element, other than the fact that his mother, Lady Jessica, is the concubine to the Duke Leto, and she elected to have a son instead of a daughter, that even though she was told to provide him a daughter. And that's kind of, it was her
by the Bene Gesserit.
Yes.
Okay.
It was kind of one of those things, like, this was her taking a chance, saying, I think that this is going to be the child of prophecy that we have been putting out there. This is the one that is going to be that. But other than that, like, it so much more is focused on survival and those basic elements that you don't really get into a lot of things with sexuality. And I think it's wise not to add that element when it's not a core element in the story to start with.
Right. It didn't seem like there was room for that, so to speak. Dang it. Or whatever. Yeah, no, it didn't seem like, I mean, we're already at 2.5 hours. You could trim some of the scenes and speed up some of the slow panning shots or whatever. You might trim it down to 210 or 215. Yeah. But still, that doesn't leave room for exploration of a lot of other directions in the story, right? And so that's fine to leave that out.
I mean, giving it to a different director or whatever, and who feels the need to add that element. You find out Lady Jessica is pregnant.
Oh, right.
She's carrying a child when they're out when they join the Fremen, and Paul knows this because of his gift, and you know they could easily have added something there for that.
Right. If Paul Verhoeven had done Dune, forget about it. Yeah. Okay, so is there anything else we need to get through on this, or should we start wrapping it up? I don't know. What else?
I don't know. If we go much further down that path, I'll probably land us another 2-star review somewhere.
That's right. So, everybody needs to go on iTunes and read our latest 2-star review of somebody who decided that Ryan was a homophobe, which is hilarious. But yeah,
I've said some stupid things. I apologize for them, but
not for that one. That was
that
funny.
one.
So anyway, I think we're good. Dune, I thoroughly enjoyed it both times. It probably helped that I was fully immersed the first time. I was not checking my phone because I didn't really have the option. So
Yeah.
I love it. I fully recommend it. But by now, it's been out a couple weeks, and so people who want to see it, they've seen it.
Yeah.
So.
I will say this is me putting down my bet, and it's not a really far-reaching bet or whatever. But I think that this, when it is finished, if Dennis
Villeneuve. There you go. That was pretty good.
When he finishes this, if he continues on the trajectory he's going with this will be put up as one of the best cinematic pieces done in the last 30 years.
Just as far as filmmaking, cinematography.
It will be. So if you create a shelf of the best cinematic films done, and that will win all the awards and things like that, you'll have, Lord of the Rings will be up there and Dune will be right next to it.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm.
And Titanic.
I've never seen Titanic.
Wait, what?
I've never seen it.
Hang on. Okay, hard right turn on this episode. You've never seen Titanic?
I have never seen Titanic.
Okay, you know what? I am committing. This isn't an idle thing. I am committing to this. Our patrons are going to get a watch along of Titanic with me and Ryan but before the end of the year. Okay, Ryan, before the end of the year, you and I are going to sit down in front of microphones and watch Titanic. Okay?
All right.
Yes? Is that a yes?
I'll do it.
Oh, yes. Okay, we got a yes. This has got to happen. I can't believe you haven't seen Titanic. Okay, all right, sorry. Back to Dune. Okay. We're going to talk more about this off mic. This is incredible. That you were a teenager in the late 90s who didn't see Titanic.
There were boobs in
Ryan.
it.
PG-13 boobs.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
The response there. My parents would never have let me go see that. And I was not a rule breaker.
Oh, you were when you were hanging out with me.
Well, that's different.
Okay. Well, anyway. On that note, everybody go enjoy Dune. Let us know what you thought of it. Thanks for listening. This was one of our only audio-only episodes lately. We don't do a lot of those these days. Every once in a while, I suppose. But yeah, we just didn't have our camera set up, so no worries.
Yeah. Different location, not quite set up for that yet.
Yeah.
This is the secret studio where the Harry Potter episode was recorded.
That's right. So anyway, everybody, thanks for listening. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Sure, based on this episode. Yeah, go ahead and subscribe. I'm sure you'll love it. Go to thelegendarium.com. You can find all the links there, Patreon and the archives and all sorts of Discord. Yeah, go hang out on Discord. Did you know we broke 1,000 on Discord? Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So Lord Kiptan has quite the brood over there on Discord. So anyway, everybody go do that. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.